across the fucking globe.
There's 100 factors. You're right, but I'm just telling you, like, know what the key factors are because there's a bunch of like research into this, and one of them is not what you just said. The key factor, as I stated in the very beginning, is like supply and demand issues had little to do with Joe Biden. And there's no evidence. I have not seen evidence to suggest otherwise. If you have evidence to suggest otherwise, I'd love to see it. The most evidence.
We're not talking about like Governor Newsom, right? The rest of your Democratic people.
The most evidence I've seen around the idea that Joe Biden caused inflation, because I was very particular with my words. I said the main cause of inflation was supply and demand issue. There was certainly inflation caused by just the sheer amount of government spending, but at best case, I've seen evidence of between maybe 1% and 2%, at absolute worst, 2% of inflation being caused by, these massive government stimulus bills, which is, that's a conversation to be had about why those decisions were made and if it was worth it, blah, 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 blah. But none of the factors included some executive order around fucking federal drilling.
Most people, first of all, don't know what the economist people, I'm sure they do. Like I said, I'm assuming that, because listen, man, I got nothing against you and your group of people. Like, I think you're all intelligent kids and like, young men. And I think you guys have bright futures, right? But what I'm trying to tell you is stop looking at, like, it goes to the point, and I'm not going to talk I'm going to talk about you and Harry, I guess, in this sense, because you guys make very similar videos. You guys rather than see him succeed. Like, and that's just the fact that Harry's gloating on his last video about the Pope going and tweeting about like something to do with JD Vance, dude, that is anti-American in my eyes.
I think we do I don't think we want Donald Trump to fail. I think we do what we do because
name one thing Donald Trump did that was good so far.
I think Donald Trump is one of, if not the worst president.
So you can't even do it, Chris. Just name me one thing he did that was good.
I'm trying to answer your question. I don't think that, like, I'm prefacing the answer. I don't think anything that Donald Trump has done that I would agree with even comes close to outweighing all the tremendous negatives he's done to set our country back decades. But Operation Warp Speed was great. I don't think
that's the last one. What about this term?
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything this term that Donald Trump has done that I agree with.
The fact that he's got the border crossings down by like roughly 99%.
I disagree with that. That's a misleading statistic.
No, it's really not.
Not okay. Then down 99% since when?
Since the last 4 years.
Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. Try like a date.
I mean, I would have to look up the date.
Right.
Like,
so what the date you're referring to is like probably like October of 2022. Like border crossings were, in mid 2024, 6 months before the election, border crossings were at similar numbers, if not lower at some points than like under Donald Trump at 2017 and 18.
I can explain that.
Right. But I know we can like talk about why that happened. But the reason I said that is because obviously like border crossings had dropped significantly in the last year under Biden before Trump. So saying like they've dropped 99%. Yeah, 99% from October 2022. But that's an incredibly misleading way to like provide that statistic.
Okay, Chris.
Because it leaves out the fact that border crossings have dropped significantly. I don't need
10 seconds to explain that. It happens during every presidential election.
Oh my God.
Right?
No.
No, it happens during every presidential election.
Please, I just don't understand how we're like, I'm trying to get you like follow a logic train. I don't care about why it happened. Regardless of why it happened, the way you just explained that statistic is incredibly misleading.
Yes, because if it was Kamala in office, that number would have spiked back up, just like when Biden was elected. The numbers were dropping at the end of the term because, once again, they didn't know if Donald Trump was going to reelected or if Biden was going to get elected. But the second that Biden was elected, within months, the border crossings spiked back up.
I don't think people stopped crossing the border 8 months before the election because they thought Donald Trump was going to win.
Absolutely. They're scared to be turned away. The difference between the two administrations when it comes to the border, like you guys say there's no open border policy, whatever. Let's argument, like, let's say we concede to that. The difference is one administration actually lets the Border Patrol do their job and doesn't do catch and release. The other administration was just people toe tagging people and letting them into the American country. So when somebody risks, because ultimately these people are risking their lives to come to America the way they were, it's a very they take by doing it that way, the illegal way. Mm-hmm. And so when they realize, like, hey man, I'm not going to get caught and then released into America, I'm going to get caught and turned back. That risk doesn't outweigh the reward.
That wasn't happening like under
wasn't happening?
Under what
Catch and
policy?
release wasn't happening?
No,
Chris?
what policy are you referencing where they're caught and then immediately sent back?
The policy of our border, like this is like
Yeah. Like maybe like let's try during like the first Trump term, for example.
stay in Mexico.
Remain in Mexico.
Yeah.
How many people did Remain in Mexico apply to under over? Well, when was Remain in Mexico signed?
I can double check. I don't know.
The answer is 2019. How many people did it apply to?
Pretty much anybody not seeking asylum.
And not correct. And it applied to a total of 65,000 people over that span that it was in effect. The reason it applied to so little people is because like you had to meet some very like niche qualifications to actually be quote sent back to Mexico. Because again, it's like federal law if you're seeking asylum that we're gonna let you in the country. So like the way again you just framed that like completely incorrect. It was not the policy of the Trump administration during.
I never said it was the policy.
No, you did. You just
I said it's one administration allowing the Border Patrol to do their job, and the other administration telling them to catch and release.
Again, you're just
that's not a policy.
Okay, so first of all, you're just completely wrong about like Remain in Mexico and how many people it applied to because it just was almost nobody. Number two, Border Patrol was obviously doing their job, right? We have the numbers for like
they were catching them and releasing them. That was a job under the last administration.
Okay, so again, like
this administration under Tom Homan is saying catch them and send them back.
Yeah, so why do you think that again that? I just think you have like a fundamental misunderstanding of like our asylum laws and like what happens at.
I do not. Like I know exactly what our asylum laws are.
Okay. Cool.
Like, but not everybody, just because you're having a hard time economically doesn't mean you're qualified for asylum. Just because you want to come to America and your country's not as good as America doesn't mean you qualify for asylum.
Okay. How do you feel
about? You got to be escaping some type of persecution.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about like a Brego Garcia?
I mean, I feel like he's exactly where he belongs. He's home. I don't care about none of the other stuff.
You don't care
he is or isn't he or whatever. None of that. I really don't care about that. He did have due process. In 2019, he went to see an immigration judge that ruled that he was to be deported. He then went to an appellate's court, right, for immigration to be deported. There was a federal hold-in or something like whatever to not allow like him to be deported back to Salvador.
Mm-hmm.
But like from now and the new things that are being released, which I had a chance to dig down through it, he's the worries. But like understanding Guatemala on that federal order
have to do with.
I mean, he went through due process in 2019.
Right. So then he's already 25.
So he slipped through. Do we have a lot of people that slip through the cracks in a lot of different scenarios?
Wait. Those two things contradict each other. Did he slip through the cracks or did he get due process?
No, he went through due process and then he was never deported.
Okay. But in 2025, when he was deported, did he have due process?
You don't have to go through due process again.
Oh, really? So due process.
So you got to continuously go through due process. I want
you to stop right with what you just said. You have to sound out the word. First word, due. What's the last word?
Process.
Because it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, he went through it.
No. Again, due process, the reason it ends in that word process is because it doesn't happen like once. It's a continuous, ongoing thing to make sure that the government isn't doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So he had due process in 20, where he appealed the decision. They gave him.
He lost.
Can I finish? They gave him legal status to work in the United States and a stay order to not be deported. ICE did not.
No, not to be deported.
Can I finish speaking? He got legal status to work. ICE did not object. They did not file an appeal. And then he was arrested in 2025 where he didn't see a judge. So he didn't have due process.
So the initial ruling was that he was to be deported, just not back to El Salvador.
No, that's incorrect.
And let me ask you this, Chris.
That is incorrect.
Hold on, Chris. Hypothetically speaking, and this does happen in our judicial system. Let's say you get arrested.
Yeah.
You go through due process, right? You see your day in court, right?
Yep.
Okay, you're
arrested Abrego Garcia and what the evidence is against him. And when ICE had the opportunity to appeal the fact that he got legal status, they were like, the only evidence that we have that he was part of a gang is this arrest at Home Depot and this form we filled out. We're not going to object. And Abrego Garcia walked away with legal status. So he didn't go on the fucking run. That's absurd. And again,
nobody's saying he went. I was using it as a hypothetical for you.
In this entire conversation, again, like arguing that this was right? The Trump administration a million times that this was an error. So there's a man sitting who hasn't been convicted of a crime, who the Trump administration agrees and the Supreme Court agrees to due process, and he's sitting in a dungeon chamber forever.
Where's that?
El Salvador.
Yeah, no. What's that place he's at?
CCOT?
He's been transferred. So he's not a dungeon that you guys like to call it?
Where did you hear that he was deported? Or I'm sorry.
No. He was transferred weeks ago after one of your state reps or whatever from the Democratic Party. You know, when he was sipping on margaritas? Yeah, on the taxpayer dollars. But like he was transferred to a medium security prison after that.
Got it.
But once again, we have no jury.
Okay, well,
there's a Marine that was deported to El Salvador because of a crime also, right?
So be quiet for a second.
Yeah, he's El Salvador determines who goes to jail in El Salvador, not America.
Okay, cool. So a couple things. First of all, I apologize. I'm reading comments. People are saying that he was moved. I never saw that he was moved.
Yeah, no problem.
Obviously, that like regardless of him being in any prison after he didn't get due process is not acceptable to me. And see, like he was sitting in a torture chamber for a while there. So anyways, yeah. So like, again, that's like what you just said, wrong, right? Like the most conservative federal judges in the country have disagreed with what you just said. The Supreme Court made it very clear what they needed from the Trump administration. And when they said, you need
what do they need from him?
They need him to facilitate his return.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. In fact, you say, what does that mean? I will read from you one of the most conservative judges in the country appointed by Reagan about what he thinks this means. Because again, we have a judicial system, so you and I don't have to debate this. And the judicial system in America that is currently collapsing because we're lack of due process has ruled on this. It's just
because judges are harboring illegal immigrants.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Judges are harboring illegal immigrants.
I mean, are they not? Did they not do that down in New Mexico?
So do you think that there's like activist judges?
Yeah, absolutely. There's judges that have like absolutely strong ties to some political parties.
Interesting.
And they're not supposed to.
What should we do about that?
I mean, honestly, there's nothing we can do about it, Chris. But we should trust our judges, and our judges should have the fortitude to actually separate what they feel versus the Constitution.
Interesting.
Like what happened up in Wisconsin, dude, was appalling. Now the new one, the third one, I forgot where it is. I think it's somewhere like in the Northeast. Like, dude, come on. We can't have like, dude, if anybody's laughing at America, they're laughing at the division and what's going on. If anybody reads history, we are on the brink of something really good here or really bad here. Right? Yeah, the really good is like that America's going to be put first and we're going to get through this little division. Or the really bad thing is the other option that we had when Abraham Lincoln was in presidency. Like that's just the facts, man.
Okay. Hold on a second. Sorry.
Like, and I don't want to see it go that way because no matter how you vote, I still love all my Americans. I served 8 years in the Army.
I appreciate your service.
Because I believe people should be able to vote how they want to vote. Because they should be able to do what they got to do to pursue happipiness. But that's for American people. That's not for illegals.
So really quickly, this is just about what facilitate means. Just quickly, Harvey Wilkinson, Reagan, one of the most conservative judges in the country. Quote, the Supreme Court's decision does not, however, allow the government to do essentially nothing. It requires the government to, quote, facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. End quote. Facilitate is an active verb. It requires that steps be taken as the Supreme Court has made perfectly clear. The government should be prepared to share what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps. The plain and active meaning of the word cannot be diluted by its constriction, as the government would have it, to a narrow term of art. We are not bound in this context by a definition crafted by an administrative agency and contained in mere policy directive. He's citing several court cases. Thus, the government's argument that all it must do is, quote, remove any domestic barriers to Abrigo Garcia's return is moot. And it is not well taken in light of the Supreme Court's command that the government facilitate Abrigo Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador. Quote, facilitation does not permit the admittedly erroneous deportation of an individual to the one country's prisons that the withholding order forbids, and further to do so in disregard of a court order that the government not so subtly spurns. And then he goes on to, again, explain more about facilitation. And then in his last quote, he talks about, in his last paragraph, this was a 6-page ruling against the Trump administration. Quote, now the branches come too close to grinding irreparably against one another in a conflict that promises to diminish both. This is a losing proposition all around. The judiciary will lose much from the constant imitations of its illegitimacy, to which, by dint of custom and detachment, we can only sparingly reply. The executive will lose much of a public perception of its lawlessness and all of its attendant contagions. The executive may succeed for a time in weakening the courts, but over time, history will script the tragic gap between what was and all that might have been, and law in time.
So he's quoting what I just said, like the negative outcome, right? Now, let me ask you this, Chris. Facilitate means to actively pursue, right?
Okay.
The return. Okay, so we start off. Let's go like a military member.
Hold on, Goose. I feel like, again, the idea of like respecting our judiciary. We want to know. This is a great conversation that happens in the law about what words means. Sounds like a federal judge who, again, super staunch conservative.
But they have no jurisdiction over El Salvador.
Okay, wait. But they were tasked with ruling about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's administration.
So he's supposed to facilitate.
Wait. So you disagree with Harvey Wilkinson's definition of what facilitate means?
What I'm saying is, like, me and him were very close and very similar on the outcome of the way this country's going, like in our opinions. But what I'm trying to explain to you, Chris, facilitate can mean to ask, right?
Okay, so you don't
ask for him back.
Yeah, but it's just a very simple question. He said, quote, facilitation does not permit the admittedly erroneous deportation of an individual to the one country's prisons that the withholding order forbids, and further to do so in disregard of a court order that the government not so subtly spurns.
So going forward, they have to follow that ruling.
Yeah, and
Donald Trump has to facilitate, or else he'll be held in the contempt of court, even as the president, right? He has to facilitate the return of Abrigo Garcia. Facilitate means to ask, right? Okay, well, we ask, doesn't work. Now what? Now we do the tariff thing, right? That doesn't work. Now we do the sanction thing. Okay, well, that doesn't work. So where does it stop, Chris? Do you want us to put boots on ground to go get Abrigo Garcia, a non-citizen of the United States?
So that's a great conversation to have. If the Trump administration even takes a single one of those steps,
he has to by law.
Yeah, so that's like the entire thing we're arguing, is that he's ignoring the law.
He has a date that he has to do it by, and he has to prove that he's doing that.
Okay, cool. So what happens when he just doesn't do that?
That he's held in contempt.
Really?
Yes.
And what happens when he's held in contempt?
I mean, then we'll find out, right?
No. Actually, no. It's really simple. What happens if Donald Trump just?
I guess theoretically, like if you're a normal citizen, you get arrested.
Right. Okay. So if Donald Trump ignores this court order, which he's done, he already, this federal judge agreed that he's ignoring SCOTUS. So he says, you need to do this. He has a date. So what if he just says no, like just basically says to fuck off?
Let's not do what if.
No. This is actually, it's incredibly important about how our country operates. So he's held in contempt, and
he won't do that.
Okay, but what if he does?
We're not doing what ifs.
No. We are, because the whole reason Democrats.
Well, then I expect him to be held responsible for his actions.
Right. So, Goose, the entire reason that we're having this conversation is because, like, when Donald Trump, the reason people like me keep calling him a threat to democracy is because you have to understand that, like, the way our checks and balances work are like really fragile, and so it's really easy to just like Donald Trump can just like ignore court orders and nothing's going to happen, and that's when our Constitution now
you're not understanding
no longer means anything. Right?
You're not understanding. So facilitate means to ultimately.
I understand. So what if Donald Trump already ignored SCOTUS, right? Federal judges have been very clear on that. And so if he just continues to ignore this order, what's going to happen?
He's doing that while he's consulting with his legal.
Okay,
like,
so
legal
fantastic. So he consults with his legal team.
Yeah,
so what happens
if he's doing something, it's within his legal right.
Okay, so what happens if he just continues to ignore the order?
Well, then it's up once again to the Supreme Court to whether
Okay,
or
so
not they're going to find him.
Okay, so the
if
Supreme
they're
Court
going to find him in contempt.
Cool.
If he's found in contempt and there's undeniable, that I guess be a win for you Democrats, right? But like at the end of the day, like what's your alternative? It's going to be JD Vance,
I don't
which I'm sure you don't want JD Vance to be. But like he's not. We're not going to do what if we're going to do that. Okay, what is for the?
You're not understanding. We're having. Okay, I'm not doing whataboutisms, right? He's already courts up to this moment, up to use, right? More than happy to read other court orders. And you say, the answer is that like if he just it's going to happen, right? He can the law that has been ruled because he is executive who enforces the law. Everybody around him listens to him. So, if he signs, for example, if Donald Trump were to sign an executive order saying everyone named Goose has to go to Supreme Court Rule 9-0, you can't do that. Donald Trump just tells the executive branch, I don't really care what they say, enforce the law anyways, right? When we talk about what happens after that, well, the answer is like the Constitution falls apart, which we're in a pretty intense time right now where we're getting close to that. But furthermore, like you say he's held in contempt and then that would be a win because no, actually. The Supreme Court could rule 9-0 that he's held in contempt. And then how are they going to, how is the Supreme Court, just hypothetically, do one more what if with me. How is the Supreme going to arrest Donald Trump?
I have an unprecedented time.
No. There's a clear answer.
I mean, I'm assuming it would be military police.
Okay, sort of. Yeah, it'd be the U.S. Marshal Service, right? So who is the U.S. Marshal?
I think it'd actually be U.S. I think it would be military police.
Okay, so either one. What branch do those individuals serve under? The executive.
Yeah.
Right. They're tasked with force and law. And who's the chief executive? Donald Trump, right? So that wouldn't happen, right? The whole issue that we're having right here, the reason we're having this conversation is because like the judicial branch has no enforcement mechanism. So the only reason that like we all respect and like the Supreme Court says is because they slide over a piece of paper and we all agree to respect it. If you elect a guy who doesn't care about the Constitution and selects people to work around him who also you can get into a very quick constitutional crisis because the executive branch can just ignore the judicial branch and the judicial branch can't do anything about it because it has no enforcement mechanism. Famously,
it doesn't work like that.
It don't really.
I could give you examples. I was an MP.
Wait. Are you familiar with the only other president to so blatantly ignore the Supreme Court? And what happened after?
I can give you examples.
Wait, no. I'm asking. Wait. Before you give me an example, that first of all, how I said it is exactly how it works. And second of all, who's the only other president to so blatantly ignore the Supreme Court?
Was it Nixon?
No, it was Andrew Jackson, the Trail of Tears. And I don't know if you remember, but the Trail of Tears happened because the Supreme Court said, hey, you can't do that. And he said, quote, something along the lines famously of do something about it then. And they didn't because they have no enforcement mechanism. So millions of people died. The enforcement mechanism.
Yeah, we're not in that day and age.
Yeah, right, Goose. The enforcement mechanism for the judicial branch, when they're like, hey, you need to arrest that person, order means something, how they enforce that is through the executive branch because the executive branch enforces the law.
Correct. But Chris, just like in the military, like an E1 MP can arrest a general.
Okay.
Even though it's in his chain of command.
Right. So the military is going to...
There's a UCMJ law that was broken, and there's an order to arrest his general, the MP could be an E1, E4, doesn't matter, could put the handcuffs on the general and arrest him.
But nobody, but that's the problem with electing the guy again, is like, we did this once. Throw an election he didn't win with evidence he didn't win it. So 40 of his 44 cabinet members from his first term didn't endorse him, and they said he was a disgrace and a danger. So what you're describing now, somebody at any level of the chain being like, Donald Trump, you can't do that, and arresting him, they all left. So Donald Trump selected a bunch of people now who are only, and that's why people like me have been screaming about this for like a year. Because the situation you just described doesn't exist anymore. There's no one who cares in that administration who cares more about the Constitution. There was, they all left and called him a disgrace, and you people didn't listen.
That's not true, Chris.
Really? I'm more than happy to read quotes from his top military
No,
general.
I'm not saying like that people weren't disgruntled. Like, I'm not saying that, but for you to say that nobody in the administration actually gives a shit about like the Constitution, that's just inaccurate. The fallacy, man.
It's not.
You
all
don't
loyalists.
you don't live in their mind. You can't pretend to know.
True. So fantastic, great
opinion, but it doesn't. An opinion doesn't mean it's fact or fiction.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Like, so the fact is, if he facilitates by asking, and once again, El Salvador says no, what do we do then, Chris?
We will.
Then we do sanctions.
Hey, I would Goose. I'm going to remember this conversation just in general, because you're going to come back on this live within the next 6 months, and Donald Trump will have not followed through on that order, and you will give me another excuse. And I
if that's so, that's because the judicial system isn't mandating that he does it. They keep pushing back the time.
No, if he just ignore again, he
cannot just ignore the order. Chris.
Why can he not just?
Because once again, the checks and balances, right? With the judicial system and the executive branch.
This is
like
what
you
I scream
cannot
about.
just ignore.
Oh my god!
Nobody can just ignore it.
This is crazy. This is the exact thing I scream about. What did you just say? You said he can't ignore it because of the checks and balances. So why not? If the Supreme Court rules Donald Trump, you have to do this, and he doesn't do it. What checks and balances are there? Why does he have to?
Let me tell you this, Chris.
No. Answer the question. What is forcing Donald Trump to follow through with what the judge said?
A court order.
So they issue the court order, and Trump says, "I don't care. Just go. Just don't listen." Then what?
Then he's held in contempt.
Okay, in this world, he's held in contempt, and they say you need to go arrest Donald Trump, and that would be up to the U.S. Marshal Service, who's under the DOJ, who's under Pam Bondi. And Pam Bondi says, "No, I don't actually care either. I think it's bad order." So then what
you
happens?
Guys would actually be able to say, "Well, now we have an executive coup, right?"
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what's happening right fucking now,
Chris. Maybe words like that when it doesn't pertain to the situation.
Nice, dude. Nice.
Like don't maybe stop watering down the words by using it when it doesn't. Nice. But until that happens, Chris, you can't say that it will. You can't say that it won't.
Actually, so
let's not pretend that it happened already.
You just moved.
My question is very simple.
You just moved. I just want to be clear. You moved the goalpost. Right?
No, I'm being honest.
You have a fundamental. I know you are. But you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how our government works. Okay, if your position is that hasn't happened yet, so don't fearmonger. That's a much different position than Donald Trump can't do that because checks and balances.
No, what I'm
checks and balances are not physical walls, right? The only reason checks and balances is a word, the only reason it works at all is because the three branches respect it. There is no magic wall stopping Donald Trump from just not listening. So if the position is, you know what, you're right, it is pretty easy to start ignoring checks and balances and like getting into a bad time and like removing judges, but let's wait until that happens. That is a different position than Donald Trump.
If Trump does that, he would lose 90% of his support base, including people like myself.
Right. Well, that's probably something along the lines of, I mean, Ramaswamy, a lot of the people in his administration now, and probably you said on January 8th of 2020, when we watched him, try to overthrow an election, and we watched, police officers get beat over the head.
I did not watch him.
Right.
Really I watched a bunch of clowns acting like a bunch of clowns.
Nice.
That took away from the people that were peacefully protesting in the Capitol.
Okay.
Just like everything else that happened, and I'm not going into this, everything like BLM protests, mostly peaceful. But you have a couple clowns acting out, right? Which the messaging.
Sure.
But let's stay on topic for 30 seconds.
Chris,
actually, he asks us for him to come back. They say no. What do we do then?
Yeah, we first of all, we can cross. I think that we can have a much different conversation if that happens. But I want to be very clear that like the United States has transported now 6 people from El Salvador back to the United States who are imprisoned in this administration.
Yeah,
right?
dude.
Goose.
It's because El Salvador doesn't want to release him.
If Donald Trump's administration brings that to the courts and shows that they tried and it didn't work, then we can have not there yet. Right.
What would we do? What would be the next step is what I'm asking.
Then I would hope in this scenario that I would hope the judiciary rules that Donald Trump did what it felt it did everything in its power to facilitate the return, and the rest is on.
What else would we do to get Albrego back?
I don't know at that point.
The next thing would be tariffs, then sanctions, and then the final and last thing, if they keep saying no, would be to put boots on ground. Do you want to risk American lives to go boots on ground in El Salvador to get somebody back that's not a citizen?
Obviously the Trump administration being very friendly with El Salvador and sending multiple people back already. Like, there's 100 ways for them to facilitate the return. El Salvador has no problem giving Abrego Garcia back.
He was just on TV 2 weeks ago saying he does not.
He's not back because he's a liability. And the El Salvadorians,
he's got information about ultimately.
So you agree that he was wrongly sent to El Salvador, just in general. The Trump administration says that, obviously, like it was a clerical error, as you say. He shouldn't have been. We can argue about if he should have been deported, but let's say he had due process. Just I'll concede to you for a second, even though I don't believe this. Let's say he had due process. He just wasn't supposed to be sent to El Salvador. Okay, you agree with that?
Yeah.
So he's a liability because he comes back to the United States and he gets to go on camera and tell everybody how he sat in a torture chamber for multiple months and he was deported to the wrong place, and he gets to sit with his family and his kids and tell his story.
We already know what he went through with the states. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm agreeing with you, Chris.
That would be bad for the Trump administration PR.
No, that would be bad for El Salvador and what CCOT really is.
Okay. Yep.
That's why El Salvador doesn't want to release him.
Okay. Again, we have no evidence of that because he keeps ignoring federal judges, and we just don't have.
No, I mean, he was literally just in the White House 2 weeks ago saying, like, no, I'm not giving him back.
Yeah, so it'd be really great if, again, the Trump administration could just explain, give us any proof that they've tried to a federal judge, and they haven't.
Okay, well, what's the date?
He's clearly been violating these court orders for several months now.
How about we do this, Chris? Because we both seem like civil people. Mm-hmm. I'll find out what the date is, whatever the date is. 24 hours after that, the next day, I'll request to come in your live, or if you see me live, you come in my live. And if Donald Trump didn't do what he said, I will 100% say he's going against the Constitution and is a threat to the Constitution.
Okay, I like it.
Fair enough?
Fair.
Chris, will you do the same?
Deal.
That sounds perfect. By the way, I hope you enjoyed your time in Chicago. I'm from Chicago.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Specifically, like literally right by Wrigley.
Oh, no way. Holy shit. Okay, dope.
That ass Lakeview area. I hope you enjoyed your time.
No, I appreciate that.
Don't allow those party people in Wrigley to deter you from Chicago again.
I appreciate that. Can I ask you one more question before you go?
Yes, sir.
About the judges, because I was going to ask you this, and then I got sidetracked a little bit. I appreciate the kind words. Appreciate you being here and being respectful. So this was a quote from someone in the Trump administration. I'm just curious what you think about it. We expect the legal profession to understand that the nation is not here for them, but they are here for the nation. I believe we should start intervening in cases and remove from office judges who do not understand the demand of the hour. What do you think of that?
I think it's a very interesting quote. Mm-hmm. The first part, I would say that's what we, the people, need to hold accountable to our politicians.
Okay.
The second part of the quote could seem almost like, hey, you better play ball kind of a thing.
Yeah, like we need to intervene and remove judges who don't.
Yeah, that is a fine line with the Constitution that I will not agree with. That you don't want to walk that line.
Agree. Okay.
So
yeah, that quote, by the way, was from the German guy in 1942, talking to the German people. It's just interesting that we both could immediately see how that would come from the Trump administration.
No, I just if I was just taking you for your word, and rather than Trump or the Democratic Party, I would say that's I'm not, and I am for the Constitution.
I actually didn't expect you to be like, oh, that's good, that's a good thing. But I think it's just interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk again as you leave live. You heard that quote, and it sounded pretty online with something we'd hear from a Trump administration official today. And that's just history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. That's all.
I get food for thought. That was a nice little jab at the end. Very, very intelligent. But we will have a conversation.
We'll have another conversation about it. I appreciate it. Hey, Goose.
Absolutely.
Be safe. And if you're ever around Chicago, grab a beer or something.
All right. Sounds good, brother. Be safe.
Right. Be safe. Thanks. Appreciate it. W's Goose. He was respectful, even though I got angry. It is crazy, though. Again, I don't expect people when they hear that quote to be like, oh, that's good. But it's always interesting that there's never, it's it sounds very like Trump administration official. And what's crazy is I saw know where that came from. I had it pretty viral and then online. In fact, I have Snoop's the fact check now written about this issue, about the quote. And commented on it. They wanted to know like where they were like, oh, did you see like viral? We're going to be able to like fact like where did I found it myself. Like I didn't see this from someone else. I actually found it from the translated quote and I sent to send it. And my Snoop's thing was beginning. It says like not false, but like it's like the original claim is like no, the tweet was like taking a shot at like he didn't say that. But then it goes on to be like, well, did the German guy say this? And they were like, and then they like took my quote and then they went to like some Harvard professor and did a bunch of research. And they were like, yeah, he said this. Boom, I win. Oh, did I say Snoop? Oh, my bad. Stop. I'm an idiot. So this is the fact check. Hitler, I can't tell. I'm going to get taken down for that. A German guy quote about removing judges credited to Trump was a prank. Here's the history passage. Rating, incorrect attribution. Online users shared posts and videos at first claiming Trump made this statement, waiting until the end to post that revealed that the German dictator originated the quote, not Trump. User, I'm declining this. Appreciate everyone being here. Don't touch screen. User Chris Mowry, I guess me, said he located the old quote in the moments following the news of the judge's arrest, posted it on X, etc., etc., etc. In Mowry's post, blah, blah, he began with the words Trump's statement after arresting Wisconsin judge, etc. Below, we detail in-depth historical information about the context. Mowry told us he located the quote from an April 1942 speech transcript hosted on the Jewish Virtual Library website. Harvard Law School's Nuremberg Trials Project website also hosts an image of a document dated April 27, 1942, a true quote to the German guy's speech from the day before. For context, he delivered the speech in front of I can never say this right. The fire. Months after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, right around the middle of World War II. The pertinent section of the document includes his remarks about the German people requesting leave during the war. He provides an example of a case where a judge purportedly sentenced a criminal to jail time instead of to fight in the war. He asserts that he sought to gain the authority to remove judges who would, quote, not understand the demand of the hour. This Ask Historians 12 days ago on Reddit. When did the German guy make this speech about removing judges who didn't align with his ideology? Also referring to my, I got you, Angie. Thanks for being here. Also referring to my tweet. This is what the historian said. I actually haven't read this. Using date-limited sources, I've traced this quotation back to an article written about, actually not, 2004, didn't appear, yep, German law, blah, 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 referently does blah, 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 in trials, blah. So he's making, finally, it's worth adding the original order, what is it going to, blah, blah, blah. In fact, it was in less than blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, this doesn't really, like, say exactly, ow, Jesus, doesn't really, like, fucking give me the, this isn't like a research analysis. This is just like, hey, I found it here and I couldn't find it there. I'll just read, I'll get off Reddit then and continue, but I don't want to read the quote. The pertinent section of the documents includes his remarks about the German people requesting leave during the war. He provides an example of a case where a judge, I said that, referencing the Nuremberg Trials website, we have bolded the two sentences in the passage that later appeared in the social media posts, which do not appear continuously. Mowry also removed the word German from German legal profession or German I can't say that word either in the translation. So yeah, essentially like, which for the record, of course they didn't appear sound continuously. That's why I put the ... You know, motherfuckers don't know grammar. Anyways, and then this is the passage. Furthermore, I expect the German legal profession to understand that the nation is not here for them, but here for the nation. That is, the world, which includes Germany, must not decline in order that formal blah. And then there's a paragraph, and then he continues to say, from now on, I shall intervene in these cases and remove from office judges who evidently do not understand the demand of the hour. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum published that following his speech. And they quoted it as this speech that he gave, the end of an independent judiciary in Germany. So basically, they said I was right. I just said a lot of, sorry, I stopped talking. Yeah, the quote. And again, for the record, you should do your own research on this. Yeah, this comes from like a very long speech from the German guy in 1942. And yes, the quote that I attributed to him is like out of order, right? He says it at the beginning of a first paragraph, and then at the beginning of like a paragraph, like the beginning of a first paragraph, and then at the beginning of a second, and then there's an in between. And the quote is, that we live in a society. I'm kidding. Quote, I expect the German legal profession to understand that the nation is not here for them, but they are here for the nation. From now on, I shall intervene in these cases and remove from office those judges who evidently do not understand the demand of the hour. That's the quote. Dude said, what proper chat, bro? Chelsea, you're amazing. How's it already 5? Okay. I feel like it's not really rage. I feel like I'm super ash about this. Emily, good to see you. I'm doing good. How are you? Braden, how have you been? Hopefully good. I said on Venmo. Can I get a million W's for Braden? So good. So good to see you. Braden, doing well. Appreciate that a lot. Kira, $2. Good to see you. Hope you're doing better than okay. Hanging in there. I appreciate you a lot. It's really good to see you. Even if lives don't do much, just know they do and change my life. I appreciate you. Yo, Kira. The greatest to touch a basketball, LeBron James, of course. Kierra. I love you. You're amazing. Can I get a million W's? Seriously, that means a lot. Not something I take for granted ever. None of this is stuff I take for granted. Kaylee, so good to see you. $5. It's not something I take for granted. That's a morning Celsius, and I appreciate it a lot. I haven't seen you live in forever. You never added me back. So much is going on. I hope you're doing well. You have so much support behind you. Yo, Kaylee, I appreciate you. W's, I'll add you back. I apologize for that. It's been a while, though. I know it's been too long. I appreciate you. W's for Kaylee. I appreciate you. Okay. Listen, folks, that was a good debate there with Goose. It's 5 now. I think I'm calling it for now. Probably be back on later. Maybe we'll do a cooking with Chris later. Minecraft stream, Libby, even mentioning it. I need to. Always a pleasure, Emily, Ryan. I appreciate all of you. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. It's Friday Eve. I'm proud of all of you. I know life can be hard sometimes. Cooking, Ryan, I need to do it. It's bigly. I know life can be a challenging thing sometimes. And I know a lot of people are going through it. And just, Allie, I appreciate you. Susanna, always a pleasure. I just want to say like how proud of you I am, because life is like a really hard, complicated thing. But just know I'm on your team and I'm proud of you. Kayla, thanks for being a mod and being in here. You're amazing. Thanks for the heart, Emily. I appreciate you. You're amazing. Oh, Nurse Linz, it's good to see you. I'm sorry. Be on later. I appreciate you popping in though. Brianna, I love you. Sam, thanks for being here the whole time. You're incredible. Ophelia, Courtney, always a pleasure. You are so kind. Truly, I love all of you, and I don't take any of this for granted ever. Kid, hello, how are you? It's been too long. Hope you're doing well. Chris, it's always a pleasure. Vanessa, I will see you later. I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna go upload some videos. Check out my YouTube channel if you haven't. Mean a lot. Christy Mowry, link in my bio. Bella, see you soon. Livy, I appreciate you. Thanks for all the love, guys. Seriously. Lula, I believe. I appreciate you so much. I got you, Andy. Andy, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying your day off. Love from Australia. Yo, I appreciate you so much, Rylan. Yes, I did see your election results. I appreciate you a lot. Seriously. Yo, Cry Bri, I think I appreciate you a lot. Miss G, maybe. We'll see. Zoe, I appreciate you. Zoya, I appreciate you. Run for office, maybe one day. Patrick Engelhardt, dude, I hope you're doing well. Kit, that's all right. I'll be on soon. It's good to see you. Seriously, I appreciate you popping in here. Patrick, I hope you're doing well, man. It's been too long. Ken's, what's up? I love all of you. Scooby-Doo, appreciate the kind words. All right, we'll be on soon. I'm out of here. Anna, great to see you.